But Gary, it does seem, I think, in the last week, and even maybe in the last month, there's been a change in the conversation that 6 months ago when we looked at Declan Rice, this could be a very good player for the future of Irish football, to actually, this could be a very good player in the future of the Premier League. That here he is, just turned 20, playing week in, week out, one of only a handful, if even, of teenagers who are playing every week in the Premier League, and already able to control a game. Is he even better than you thought he was going to be?
No, I knew that he was going to be a good player. Obviously, I spoke to Kenny, had told me about him coaching him at the younger age group, was aware of him, so I took a real shine to him. And then obviously, as it's been well documented, I love these interviews and what it meant to him to play for Ireland, etc., etc. But in terms of playing, I disagree with Johnny Giles. I don't think he's a centre half. Certainly not in a 2. In a 3, yes, a bit different, got a bit more cover, protection, but I don't see him in a 2 as a centre-half in terms of coping with movement. And I just think he's exceptional at the base of that midfield. He's elevated that West Ham team. If they don't have him in that team, they struggle. They've got no athleticism in that midfield area with the likes of Noble, Wilshere, those type of guys. And he reads the game so well. And what's been so impressive about him is that because he's been able to play regularly now, you can see his game evolving. At first, when he first started playing central midfield, he was reluctant to play forward passes, ones that were a bit risky, trying to break lines, but he's been encouraged to do that all the time now. And I think that he is looking the real deal there. I think he will be the type of player. I think Guardiola has said that they're looking for a defensive midfielder. They're going to scour all of the world, Europe, to find one to complement Fernandinho in terms of when he moves on or is not able to play as many games. When they do that, I definitely believe that he'll be on the list.
Yeah, because I saw Graham Hunter, journalist in Spain, tweeted during the week, and he says, he said the top clubs should come in for Declan Rice now. He said in 3 or 4 years they're going to come in for him, and his price will be 4 or 5 times what it would be now. And I was thinking about it, and I think there's something to that. I think when you look at the potential he has, he's played over 50 games already, and a lot of he's a hell of a lot of man of the match awards this season for a young player. And that he can play in central midfield and central defence, and particularly, I like his personality as well. He looks very calm. He was
and very impressive in that post-game interview in the Arsenal match.
Yeah, he's very mature for a 20-year-old. Very mature.
That maturity, Kenny, from when you were working with him then with the Ireland underage, was that the under-17s?
It was the under 19s. Excuse me. Yeah, I only played with a couple of injuries, so he missed a couple of games. Declan, he played. Left of it too, funnily enough. Now Gary says he doesn't see him playing in an orthodox too. I saw him play, actually went to see him play. Actually, I was with you, Nathan. We covered a game against Tottenham at Wembley about 6 months ago. He played left of it 3, looked very comfortable. He was the best player on the pitch. If you'd asked me then, about 6 months ago, could he play in a holding position midfield, I probably would have said yes. But it would have been very regimented. I would have said, yeah, he can sit there. He's got a defensive mindset. He sees danger, tracks people. He'll make his fair share of tackles. He'll get on the ball and keep it simple enough, but he won't really hurt you with his pass and of what I'd seen from Declan up until that point. But I was probably at the game with Breen against the USA in Dublin during the summer, and that game, that was the first time I saw him evolve his game in that position, because in that game, particularly in the second half, I saw him get the ball on the half turn and play forward and start to break the lines with his passing, like Breeny was talking about. Now that's the first time I saw him and thought, he's got different facets to it. He's not just one who can sit in there, he'll head it, kick it, track runners and be a physical presence in there. He looks as if he could actually become more of a playmaker, actually create from that deep area in central midfield, and that's what he's gone on to do. And like Breeny's saying, more confident, more responsibility in the team. He's doing more. Even the situation last weekend, I saw him split the 2 centre halves, goalkeeper's kick, get the ball and drive 20 yards into central midfield towards the halfway line, commit people. Now he's dribbling with the ball into central midfield with his head up, committing people and looking to take people out of the game with his pass, and so it's great to see.
And that's interesting, Gary, because listen, if we were talking to John Giles about that, there's nothing that I think that drives him more mad than central midfielders who don't turn towards the opposition goal, or are happy to play those simple 5-yard passes, just keep things ticking along. That if Declan Rice has that in his locker, that he has that little creative spark as well, that does turn him into that right now £50 million player. Because I guess for a club like Manchester City, even with Fernandinho, he does all that hard work and stuff, but he's still got a little bit of a range of passing as well.
Well, of course, and we're seeing it notably at Chelsea now, where Jorginho, in terms of getting on the ball, but it's not really creating anything in terms of getting the opposition cut open and such like that. But if he does have it, but what has been interesting, I've just been reading a lot in terms of Mark Noble, the captain at West Ham, who's been saying that he's encouraging Declan to take more risk with his passing. Now, I was at West Ham when Mark Noble initially came in the building as a 15-year-old, and he looked an exceptional player. So he looks like a type of captain who can force Declan to do that type of thing. And what ultimately he has is the ability to execute it. If he has belief in and around him in terms of his manager, which he initially got from David Moyes, now he's got from Pellegrino, now he's getting from his captain and all his teammates, coupled with the supporters, coupled with all the press really lording over him as well now. He really has got the world at his feet.
That's why I think from his point of view, I think there's a fair argument that Kieran's made in terms of likes of Manchester City, different clubs, Real Madrid, whoever go and get this player now. But from Declan's point of view, I don't know if Gary'd agree with me, from his perspective, for me now, having signed that new contract, get your head down now. Get your head down, get another 50 or 100 games under your belt at this level. And then maybe then, I think physically, mentally, in terms of his maturity, I think maybe that might be the time when he's ready to make that next step.
And there's something to be said for that, because if you read about actually how Liverpool scouted Salah, Liverpool were scouting him as far back as when he was at Basel, when he went on to Chelsea. But they waited till he was a couple of years older. And if you look at how he did at Chelsea, it probably, it wasn't the right time. There is that argument that there is an optimum age to get a player for a big club, that they're not ready, maybe a couple of years younger.
Well, they need to play as well, and I guess that's the flip side of this. If we're talking about a move, there's so much at the moment. You look at what's happening in Germany and the way they're starting to look at these young English players after Jordan Sancho and now Hudson-Odoi, and Miguel Delaney had a good article this week in The Independent of a list of maybe 10, 12 players, including Troy Parrott at Tottenham, that these big German clubs are looking at. That Declan Rice, along with Trent Alexander-Arnold, were the two teenagers really playing week in, week out in the Premier League. To suddenly go from that to maybe going to Manchester City, say if he was to go next summer and Fernandinho's still there, to playing that sort of bit part role, 15, 20 games, half an hour here, a full game here in cup games.
You look at Phil Foden. Phil Foden is so highly rated, and he's hardly getting a look in. He gets.
Is that a factor, Gary?
Yeah, ultimately, I look at even examples like at Chelsea, where they were obviously identifying top talents in Europe: De Bruyne, Salah, Lukaku. But they had to go and play first-team football to elevate themselves to the level with which they play now. And people may well use that as a stick to beat Mourinho with at Chelsea and say, well, why didn't you play him then? Because they weren't at that level. They hadn't had that key development stage that they got with the pressures that come with playing for points, playing for the real pressure where you have to win games. So I agree with Kenny. I think he's best served staying at West Ham. But there's no doubt these bigger clubs will be looking at him.